I see Clinton Yates looking out of his binoculars.
Yep. We are now streaming live on YouTube, though, at the Team 980, now that we got all that straightened out. And Clinton Yates will not just be staring into his binoculars in a commercial slate. He will be joining us live coming up at 4:30. Our plan today was to not really talk about the Commanders-49ers game in the ways that we usually do to start the show and do a fun top sports stories of 2023 and do that for the first half hour before Clinton joined us. And instead, we're going to cram that into the next segment and talk with Clinton about the top two and get a prediction out of each of us for 2024 coming up at 4:30. But I would like to start, Anthony, with the breaking news that hit us when Ron Rivera stepped to the podium earlier today. And all of a sudden, we have to talk about this game because, oh my God, Sam Howell might be starting. If you have not heard this news yet, you just got out of your work for the day. Congratulations, you're done working, hopefully, for 2023. We'll be done at 6:45 today. That'll be, well, that's not true. Anthony, you'll be done at 6:45 today. I have to do a pregame show on Sunday. Anyway, the point is, Jacoby Brissett picked up a hamstring injury apparently Thursday in practice. Now, he did do some, it sounds like, in practice today. We'll have much more on this with Ben Standig coming up at 5. But we all of a sudden, Jacoby Brissett is listed as questionable for Sunday. And Anthony, we've spent all this time this week talking about why Sam Howell needs to take a seat, why it's right for Brissett to be in. Obviously, your main install days in practice are Wednesday and Thursday. Brissett was your QB1. He took all the reps. So now, if Sam has to play, he'd have to come in with minimal practice time. Obviously, he's been practicing the whole year as QB1, so it's not like a backup who has gotten no reps. But specific to this 49ers defense, he has certainly not been as focused on them as he normally would be as QB1 in terms of the starters' reps. This is suboptimal, to say the least, for Sam Howell. The one thing that I think would be good, and when we talk about like the mentality of it, is I think everyone's expectations for him are through the floor. So as opposed to them being through the roof, like it's been much of the year, where it feels like the whole season is hinging on whether or not he continues to grow, and the whole season and everything is like, Sam. Now it's like, man, poor Sam. And maybe that he even gets the kind of pressure release that was needed without actually having to miss a game. I hope for everyone's sake that Jacoby just gets to play, including for Jacoby's sake. Like, he has been a great, not just a good soldier, a great soldier all year. He has been so supportive of Sam. He is someone who you hear is just like incredible around the locker room, someone who can kind of translate sometimes what the coaches are trying to say into things that are more digestible for his teammates. Just someone who has that experience that can do that, that's been in multiple systems, that has the players' understanding but a coach's level of knowledge. And so I hope he gets rewarded to be able to play and play a full game and do it with as little limitations as possible. And, depending on what this hamstring situation is, you can do a lot of stuff with a hamstring. Unfortunately, the one thing that's really hard is running, which becomes a fairly important part of football as a quarterback, especially against the defensive line as good as the San Francisco 49ers. Now, could Jacoby play with that hamstring injury and just get the ball out of his hands lickety-split, or if he is under pressure, just turtle and go down and never try to really scramble? Yeah, he could, but I don't know that he's going to want to risk that, and I don't know that they want him to risk that. So all in all, Anthony, long story short, not great, Bob.
Yeah, this is not the most ideal news that you want to hear on a Friday before a game against a top 5 team in the NFL.
A top 5 team that's angry.
Yeah, coming off a beating last week, eager to get back on the field. And then you also have, what just happened this week in terms of a QB change. So, this is not an ideal situation, but now that we are here, I guess we just got to, figure out what EB and, Ron can do necessarily for Sam, to get him prepared, because I'm thinking a worst-case scenario. I'm thinking Sam's going to end up playing. You already said how much it is, how tough it is to play through a hamstring injury. So I'm thinking a worst-case scenario, and I think Sam's going to be out there. So I'm just thinking about all the things that EB has done for Sam, or struggled to do for Sam, in terms of too many regular dropbacks, too few quick game, too few moving pockets, things of that nature. Ways to get Sam in a groove come Sunday, and I'm hoping EB can wrap his head around it because I think Sam's going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, I just it's too early to tell. If he did stuff in practice today, I'm pretty encouraged.
Yeah.
But getting added to the injury report on a Friday is never good. Never good at all.
Does that mean he got to change the entire game plan, sort of, kind of?
I think you have to tweak it. Like I think you a game plan is multiple parts, right? It's part what do you think the other team is like, where's their weak points? Where can you expose them? That's not going to change. Part what your guys do well, and like where do those things match? And so I think you dive a little bit into maybe heavier into different parts. If you think that you can get certain things that suit Sam's game a little more often, you call those plays a little bit with more frequency versus the things that Jacoby does well. But I don't think all of a sudden with this, and by the way, it's also worth mentioning, Jacoby's far from the only one on the injury report.
Oh.
Leno, out. Larson, out. Wiley, questionable. So 3 of your 5 offensive linemen, and by the way, your 3 most veteran offensive linemen, all could be out against a nasty front for San Francisco. Bosa is having a great time right now. And actually, Chase has not been super productive for them, but their rush as a whole has gotten better. Standig wrote about this for The Athletic. Like, San Francisco's rush as a whole has gotten better since he's gotten there because obviously he demands some level of attention. And so Bosa's sack numbers have actually skyrocketed since Chase arrived. Cleveland Ferrell, one of those names it's kind of hard to say, Cleveland Ferrell, I believe is the correct pronunciation. Former top 5 pick, way overdrafted. Should not have been a top 5 pick by Mike Mayock with the Raiders, but obviously was a clear first rounder and is very talented. He's had some nice rushes for them. Randy Gregory, again, same kind of super talent, but kind of lost his way most recently in Denver. Like, he's out there. They have so many dudes. That's not to mention, like, Hargrave, who they signed from the Eagles in the offseason inside, and some of the other dudes that have been around for them for a while. So against this O-line, it's not like they were going to be like, well, Jacoby knows how to throw the ball deep down the field and sit back there forever. No, they're going to try to get the ball out quick, and it's a matter of Sam doing it. It's going to be like, hey, man, you see how Jacoby did this all week in practice? Back foot hits, ball gets out. And if not, you immediately look towards your check down and you throw it. And if he's covered, you throw it 7 feet over his head, and you live to see another down. So it's tough, man. There's not a lot of good. We'll probably at 4:45 we'll play Logan and I's quick and dirty preview of the game from Take Command. I would highly recommend the full episode of Take Command for anybody who's got the longer term vision goggles on. We did a deep dive into kind of how the Niners have built their juggernaut. Logan was there for year 1 of Kyle in San Francisco, and he's seen it come together and obviously knows how Kyle thinks and how that organization runs. And as something that I actually want to do as a Take Command series this offseason is take a look at, like, the Niners, the Ravens, the Dolphins, some of these teams that have built the Lions, Browns, teams who have built up winners, some of whom just like have won this year, some of whom have been contenders for a couple of years. Take a look at how they built their roster, how they acquired their quarterback, the roster distribution, key free agent signings, key trades. Like, what does their roster actually look like, and what's their setup in the front office? I want to look at that this offseason. And we kind of did that with the San Francisco 49ers. And that deep dive is available now on the Take Command podcast and on YouTube at 1067 The Fan. I'm going to post up that segment on my page at Craig Hoffman as well here in just a little bit. But we also did like a more, a quick and dirty preview of this particular game, which we'll play for you later. The quicker and dirtier version is good luck, because they're loaded all over the place. Whether Sam, Jacoby, and by the way, we haven't even gotten to the fact that 3 or 4 starting secondary players are out. Percy Butler's out. Benjamin St. Juste is out. And I know for a lot of people, like, some loss that is. And I don't disagree that St. Juste should have been benched for Forbes, but Kendall Fuller's also out on the other side. So right now, Tariq Castro-Fields starting with Cam Curl, Terrell Burgess, and Forbes. So, whoo, buddy. Going to be an adventure on Sunday. Of course, these are the games that Washington has been stupidly competitive in over the years as well. So it feels like that's worth pointing out. We'll pick the games all coming up at 5:30. Clinton Yates at 4:30. Next, though, our top sports stories for the Hoffman Show in 2023. We will go through them quickly next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. So we got our top 10 sports stories of 2023, because this is the final show of the year, of course. We're going to get through our top 8 right now, and then Clinton Yates is going to join us at the bottom of the hour, and we will talk or reveal our top 2. I'm fairly sure that most of you listening could guess the top 2. They're not very difficult. This was not meant to shock or awe, just meant to recap, to remember all the things that have happened over the past year. And number 10, and actually number 9 as well, I got to give credit where it is due. At Commander_Hokie on Twitter submitted these two. We asked for folks to take some submissions. But he gave us these two, and I think they were great. And I had kind of forgotten about them, which is why I solicited people on Twitter to help us keep the memory fresh. Number 10 is one that we talked about a lot, and I think we talked about it probably more than any other show. But sports washing continuing to be a huge story. And it's something that we talked about in a number of different realms. We talked about it with, obviously, the LIV Golf Tour and what's happening with Saudi Arabia and their government and MBS. And, again, not to go too deep into the geopolitics of it all, but, like, it's not great, to say the least, and what they're doing, LIV, PGA Tour, et cetera. We talked about it when Monumental sold some of their team, some of their company to the Qataris. We talked about, obviously, the Qataris as well with the World Cup in 2023, which was, I guess that was the end of 22, but that story kind of spilled over. All in all, sports washing continues to be a huge story. It's something that we've definitely talked about, and it's something that will continue to be a story as international investment in American sports continues to become a thing, and you know, teams and leagues even use the sporting side of there, because we even talked about it kind of through the Snyder stuff. Is like, you know, Snyder, part of the reason Snyder couldn't get away with his stuff is because his team stunk. Could he, if with a good season, been able to continue forward because fans wouldn't have put on the pressure that they did? I think that is something that is always good to keep in mind. Number 9, the Jets season being derailed after 4 plays. You know, I like the way that Commander_Hokie put this on Twitter. Nothing funny about injuries, but the over-talking about the Jets led to some serious schadenfreude. I mean, the amount of airtime spent on the Jets this offseason, which, of course, it's a New York team. You know, super fan of the team, hosts the most popular morning sports television show out there, in Mike Greenberg and Get Up. There is just so much talk about them, so much talk about Rodgers. Rodgers is a master at making things about himself with his ayahuasca and his darkness retreats. And then 4 snaps into the season, if it was even that many, was it 2? Was it 4? Whatever. Bye-bye Achilles. And then he spent the next bunch of weeks saying, like, oh, I can be back. No, he can't. Just continues to be about the same thing, which is Aaron Rodgers. Number 8, appropriately, Anthony, the grade 8, Alex Ovechkin. This is our capital story that makes the list. So this is kind of, I think, a composite national and DC list, kind of our list for the show. We haven't done a ton on this, but something we've been watching in the background, obviously, and will cover more as he gets closer and closer. But Alex Ovechkin's pursuit of Wayne Gretzky and the all-time goal-scoring record, it is still worth remembering that from a point standpoint, if Wayne Gretzky had never scored a goal, he'd be the NHL's all-time leading points getter. He had that many assists, which is the dumbest record in all of sports. Gretzky's records and Jerry Rice's receiving records are the most insane records that in like the traditional 4-team sports. Katie Ledecky's swimming records also up there. Number 7, NBA stuff. I was trying to think, like, what are the big NBA stories of the past year? Sadly, Anthony, it's suspensions. You reminded me that we got to add Draymond to this too. But if you think about time spent talking about NBA stuff, of course, Jokic winning the title and, you know, downfall of the Warriors, LeBron, like there's all kinds of traditional stuff that happens every year. But the Ja Morant suspension, that's not something in a situation that happens every year for sure. And same thing with what's happened in Draymond here at the end of 2023.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, with them, it was, like, multiple incidents throughout the year. Like, Ja and Draymond were both in March, April. They had incidents in the summer. And then Draymond a couple of times to start the season. Ja, you know, he served this suspension. Now he's back. So, like, he's been all over the news cycle all of 2023. Like, we would be remiss if we didn't include those two.
No, for sure. And you know, I think especially really with both of these guys, it's led to larger discussions about, you know, in Ja's case, obviously guns and race and the way we perceive how those two topics mix and, you know, legality versus morality. You know, a league's ability to police something versus the police's responsibility to police something and like where those different lines are drawn. So there's been a lot of interesting conversations about those things. Then obviously like a mental health aspect with Draymond And I think there's another kind of follow-up discussion to have on Draymond of like, how much should we be speculating about people's mental health? I think that it's both safe to say like we should be considerate of people and, you know, what they may be going through, but also like it seemed like everyone was just concerned for Draymond without Draymond ever being like, yeah, I'm in a position, or people around him directly saying like, yeah, he's got whatever. And not that we need to know his personal medical stuff. So I don't know. It's very complicated, very convoluted. Clearly not going to get to it in any kind of detail right now because we're trying to name and briefly discuss 8 stories in about, well, now we're down to 6 stories in 3 minutes. Number 6, Eric Bieniemy is getting hired, and really the offensive coordinator pursuit. It was very early in 2023 that Scott Turner was fired. It was not a surprise. And then there was this month-long goose chase of who is going to be the coordinator. And it started with like the Pat Shurmurs, and, there was talk of, is Greg Roman. We did many Greg Roman segments on this show because Ron and everybody came out saying like, oh, we want to run the football more. And it's like, well, then go hire Greg Roman. There's nobody better at doing it. And then they went the exact opposite direction. They got the guy who I think was the best candidate on the market. And then as the season is gone, the whole thing has not gone to the way that we thought it would. It has really not been the success that we thought it would be. He has been critically important, but not in the way that we thought. It hasn't been a positive influence, I think, overall on the franchise in the way that we had hoped that it probably should have been. But again, we've spent many hours on that. So if you want more, just go to any of our on-demand platforms. Number 4, I'm going to call this the Wizards rebuild. So you've got the firing of Tommy Shepard, which happened 4 minutes before we went off the air one day. Then all of a sudden, we had to come back on the air, which was one of the craziest days in this show's history because Anthony could not stay. And so, Anthony, who ran the board for me that night?
Our boss.
Yes, that is correct. Chris Keinard ran a board for the first time in a decade, took your calls, etc. We rebooted the YouTube stream, kicked off the national programming, and went live for another hour on that. And then a couple weeks later, we got word that Michael Winger had been hired, and then not long after that, Will Dawkins. And then a couple weeks after that, they trade Bradley Beal, trade Kristaps Porzingis, re-sign Kyle Kuzma, and embark on this incredibly ambitious, gigantic rebuild. So that is number 4, all kind of together. It's really hard to separate those things out because they're so interconnected. Number 3, I would describe as the rise and fall of Sam Howell. He starts the game against Dallas, which was in 2023, after the new year last year, even though it was the 22 season. Everyone's like, whoa, this kid's got something. Going in the offseason, he looks the part. Training camp, like, yeah, there's flaws. Yeah, there's things to grow on. But, like, man, there's a lot to grow on. There's a foundation there. And he starts off great, playing really well, throws for 300 yards a couple times. Bills game, yikes, but, like, they're really good. And he had some bad luck. And, man, he's taking a lot of sacks. And just the up and down of the middle of the season and then the fall, the precipitous 4-game fall here at the end where things have gone terribly haywire amidst a 6-game losing streak where he has barely broken 100 yards and in some cases hasn't broken 100 yards and has gone from the NFL's leading passer to being benched. So the rise and fall of Sam Howell, certainly probably the story we spent the most airtime on this season. But we got 2 more that we considered bigger stories for the year. We'll reveal those 2 and talk about them with Clinton Yates, as well as Clinton and I's predictions for the biggest sports stories of 2024. That's next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's a Friday, the last Hoffman show of 2023. Wrapping up the week, wrapping up the year. And for the last time, it is our pleasure to welcome in our good friend, Clinton Yates, who's already done 3 hours of radio on his own today. So, sir, thank you for some extra bonus time here on this Friday.
It's okay. Hello, Gregory. Hello, Anthony. I did 2 hours of radio today, short show, because of the bowl game. But I also wrote a column that is soon to drop with my biggest story of 2023. We can get to that now, or we can get to that later. It's up to you.
Okay, so here's how we did our top 10. I did the first 8, and I saved the last 2 to reveal with you because we have talked about a lot of them, these 2 stories together. In fact, you could probably guess what they are. Because like we did, it's a composite national DC list, kind of the things that we spent the most time on.
Okay, so quickly, did you rank them? Because we did them locally, we did them chronologically to avoid rankings.
Oh, that would have been smart. No, we didn't put that much thought into it. We kind of haphazardly ranked them. Although the top 2 definitely were the top 2, you know?
Sure. So let me tell you my story of the year quickly, then we'll get to your top 2.
Okay, hit me.
Mine, for me, those of you who know that I write for Anscape, formerly The Undefeated, know that I cover Black America as well as the Black diaspora in general, athletes and otherwise. The number one story of the year to me that encompassed so many things about America, and Gregory, you are from the South, so you know this, the Montgomery Riverboat Brawl was one of the most incredible things, and I'm not even joking, player. I'm not even joking. One of the most incredible things we will ever see in American history. They will be talking about it for 100 years minimum. Got a column coming out about that on Anscape in a couple hours.
I can't wait to read that. I am pumped. Okay. Not shockingly, though, that did not make our list. In DC sports, we're a little bit different. So here was our list. And then we'll get to the top 2, just so you're in, and anybody that's just tuning in is in. Sports washing in general, because we saw it with Liv in the golf tour, and obviously the Qataris buying into Monumental, carryover from the World Cup, etc. The Aaron Rodgers, oh my God, are they going to make the Super Bowl? Oops, there goes his Achilles after 4 plays. Number 8, Ovechkin pursuing Gretzky, obviously had to be number 8.
Definitely. By the way, let's talk quickly about how this whole situation with Alexandria is actually kind of defouling the end of Alex's career. That's a separate story that we didn't get to a couple weeks ago, but yeah, anyway.
Well, you'll have a chance in a moment. Spoiler alert.
Sure.
Number 7, both Ja and Draymond suspensions. Those are huge. 6, the offensive coordinator pursuit ultimately ending in the hiring of Eric Bieniemy. Number 5, Strasburg retiring. Number 4, we just put Wizards rebuild, which encompasses firing Shepard, hiring the new guys, trading Beal, to a lesser extent trading Porzingis.
Got it.
Number 3, the rise and fall of Sam Howell, which is probably the story that we actually have spent the most airtime on, which leaves number 2, Monumental Sports moving to Virginia, and number 1, the sale of the Washington Commanders. So
number 1 is obviously a given there, no question asked.
Yeah, so let's go number 2 first, though. As the dust has settled over the last few weeks, is there anything that you still I wonder about? It's kind of maybe the right term. Maybe what's the lingering thought for you, or where are you at with it now? With a couple of weeks for the dust to have settled on the decision, and obviously a lot of details to be figured out in the future.
some leftovers, if you will, from the holiday
Yeah.
meal. I totally understand. One of the things that I just mentioned, obviously, was sort of how this affects the Capitals. I feel like a lot of black folks and a lot of basketball fans, me included, were very much thinking about how D.C. was affected in terms of basketball as a sport, in terms of the Wizards as a franchise, in terms of what I'll just call my people as a population. But I mentioned earlier, remember, what was Theodore talking about at the beginning of this hockey season? He would not shut up about how Alex Ovechkin has played his whole career in Washington. What a thing we've never seen. What an incredible situation for the franchise that is, that we got this guy forever. It was one of those side outs that Ted liked to find as like a point of contention. And by that contention, I mean positive contention, where it's like, oh, you can't blame us. Look what we're doing that nobody else is doing. If I was a Caps fan and I was thinking about how the fact that, what do you want, an Alex Ovechkin statue in Potomac Yards? Are you kidding me? No way, no how. The way that this should work is very simple. Let's just take the move off of the table. Let's say they were never moving. If he was going to sell the likeness of Ovechkin as being a lifelong capital against whatever marketing was happening with the squad, they should have a banner and a statue ready the instant this season ends. We don't need to wait 5, 10, 15 years. We don't need to wait any amount of time. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's the greatest athlete in Washington history in my lifetime. Sorry, don't want to argue about that in terms of achievements and in terms of everything else. Have that thing ready out the door, is my opinion for Ovechkin. And I feel like all of the scenarios, all of this situation regarding moving has kind of muddied that water. As a Caps fan, and if I were the kind of Caps fan that got mad about this, I would be furious, because I feel like it has simply marred what should be a graceful exit, potentially, from the franchise in terms of how these last stages go. But instead, we're talking about Alexandria, Virginia. It's just unbecoming on a lot of levels.
I think I just now have this vision of like a little kid, a 5-year-old, going with the game to his dad. Obviously, it's 2029. Ovechkin's been retired for 4 years. Dad, who's that? That's Alex Ovechkin, son. Where did he play? Not here.
Exactly. He played across the river. Would you like to get on the yellow line, sir, so that we can go see this? I don't think so, bro. Come on. Come on.
All right.
Unbelievable.
And then number one, which, by the way, circled back into the news yesterday, because we're not done with this story yet, thanks to our friend Don Van Natta, is the sale of the Washington Commanders, which I think what we're experiencing now is what a lot of us feared. And I have linked to our interview from last January many times when people are like, oh, Josh Harris, not good enough, where you were like, hey, people, you need to realize this is not going to be an instantaneous change on the football side of things. And I think what we've seen is with the NFL not pushing Snyder out earlier, we've had this lost season. So much of what has happened is bad decision-making by the people employed, but there's also many circumstantial things where their hands were tied. And we've seen this lost season. And by the way, the NFL might, if this Rothman federal lawsuit goes through, have to, if they go through discovery, I don't know what kind of money they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to pay a ton of public embarrassment if things come out in a lawsuit that they were protecting Snyder. But I do feel like, Clinton, finally, the year 2024 is going to be the year moving forward for the Commanders, where 2023 has been spent largely closing the chapter and not able yet to take that springboard to what's next.
Quick sidebar, I'm standing on a corner in downtown Los Angeles, and there's a guy standing in front of me that is wearing full Georgetown Hoyas regalia, starter jacket, hat, and shoes, just to give you guys an idea of how far that brand travels. As for the football team, I do think you're right, but there's something that I want to take quickly before I get to the actual NFL matter. You guys, as a cluster and as a station, again, did an incredible job with that day, the burgundy and soul thing. I've worked in this business for a long time. Opportunities like this to make moments like that do not happen a lot. I know you specifically got to announce it. That's not why I'm bringing it up. Just to big you up, Gregory, although I do love that element. Y'all nailed it. I watched that from afar. I listened from afar. It's the kind of thing you dream of as a person that works in media and a person that supports teams that you know growing up. That was tremendous. So that's number one, if I may.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I will give a shout out, not to be a suck up, but genuinely, he was the brain behind it. Our boss, Chris Keinerd, did an incredible job preparing for that moment and then ultimately executing it. I was lucky enough to be on the air when it happened. That's a dumb luck thing. But yeah, that was, and it also, just real quick, is like, as two guys who love this medium, who love radio, that's why radio will never die. Podcasts are amazing. I actually prefer doing podcasts on a day-to-day to radio, but there is nothing like the magic of something happening live, and that's why we still exist.
And right in front of your face, so shout to that. As for the sale. The sale was important for a couple different reasons. Number one, locally, obviously. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Daniel M. Snyder, gone off the map after many, many years. If you want to Google my name and his name and the Washington Post, you will see quite a few things that I've had to say about that. But it was also big for the NFL writ large, because in a motion in which a lot of things have happened, I think about Carolina and the guy whose name I've forgotten at this point,
Tepper.
And I think about other teams, you can get rid of your owner. It is possible to do that. The fact that that pass alone was traced as something that could happen in the modern sports landscape, I think was as big, quite frankly, for the average American sports fan than anything having to do with the burgundy and gold. And I really mean that. The idea of like, oh, wait, y'all hated this person and he was kind of a scumbag, and like, wait a second, people actually got this dude out of the paint. The fact that there was a pass indicated that this is possible was a huge moment in American sports, well beyond anything that had to do with football. And I think that's why it's sensible, not only for your list in terms of a local standpoint, but a national one as well. It was a major American business move to eliminate Dan Snyder. It's just kind of unbelievable still. And there's part of me that kind of, I don't want to say pinches myself, because I don't necessarily root for the football interest, but I do root for the fan interest of that. And it didn't even necessarily matter who Josh Harris was. It did in one context, but at the same time, it didn't. The idea was getting somebody gone who you knew was a problem. That does not happen that often in the United States of America.
No, that's really well put. And Jerry Richardson was the owner who got booted in Carolina. Tepper, obviously, the guy who bought it, which is going great. But I think to your point, soon after Snyder, the sale was in process, Robert Sarver gets kicked out of Phoenix because he saw what happened. And he's like, well, I guess I have the writing on the wall. And the only reason the Snyder thing lasts so long is because that man has zero shame. Clinton Yates with us here for another minute or two on the Hoffman Show. His final visit of 2023, because we have no more shows. So when we do this a year from now, Clinton, assuming that we just do the same exact thing, run it back 365, actually 366, 2024 is a leap year, 366 from today, what will be the number one sports story of 2024? I certainly have an idea of mine. Actually, for DC purposes, it's fairly easy, in my opinion, but where's your head at on it?
Okay, so I'm going to do this in a way that is very personal, as you know that I'm big on that. This might not be huge news nationally. Even locally, this might not matter to a lot of people, but in my household, in my extended diaspora, it will.
Okay.
I believe that in 2024, the Washington Commanders will draft a black quarterback. I believe that, and I believe that that matters in a major way. And we can name names. That's not the point, but understand what that means to the fan base of this football team in terms of who is potentially at the helm and who could potentially play and who could potentially bring them back, if we're going to use that word, to whatever glory may exist. There's an identity thing that matters there. Anthony knows what I'm talking about. All right. If a brother is the quarterback of the Washington Commanders, there is a different vibe, not just in the building, but in town, and the way that the draft is shaken out. I think it could happen, Gregory. I really honestly do. And I think that would be one of the better things this franchise could do to bring folks back.
May Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels be better coached and have more success than Dwayne Haskins and Robert Griffin?
You have forgotten somebody, sir. He plays for Washington.
The last two guys that have been drafted by them?
No, I'm talking about who might get picked
Penix.
by the Commanders. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, he
Former
could.
Indiana Hoosier, current Washington Husky.
Yeah, no, just they'd have to trade back, which is possible. There's certainly a possibility.
But that might be a smart move in this scenario.
I don't disagree necessarily. Just they're going to have a really high draft pick the way things are going.
Okay.
So mine is one that I think also will play well in the Yates household, which is they're going to go back. My prediction is sometime in 2024, an agreement will be reached to play future football games the same place they played past football games. The stadium issue is going to be resolved in 2024, Lord willing. If not, they are in deep trouble. They're going to be at FedEx way longer than they need to be. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, that was a big tractor trailer. What I was going to say is, do you think it will be resolved in the sense that they will get back to the city, or will it be resolved in the sense that they will get out of Prince George's County?
I think both. I think this is headed towards RFK. It's what it's what the team wants. It's what the fans want. The city wants it, and I think the city wants it even more now that they've lost the basketball and hockey teams, where they're all like, whether they want it to save face or that's what they wanted all along. It depends on who you're asking, who on city council, who in the mayor's office, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But they need to get this done so they can start construction, whether they stay in PG, whether something all of a sudden appears from thin air in Virginia, or they go into D.C. Construction takes a long time, and you are building a gigantic, probably multi-billion-dollar stadium. They need to get started on that. And in order to get started, you need to pick a location and then get the permits, et cetera, et cetera. And so 2024, I think, is the year that the stadium issue is finally resolved. And my guess, my case site one way or another.
Okay, Gregory. All right, Playboy. You talking about Metro lines. You should know about that blue-orange. You ever been down there? When's the last time you went to a Lot 8 or a DC United game at RFK or a U.S. women's or men's basketball team game there? You've never been. You don't know what that Metro line is like. You don't know that you got to go right when you get out of there if you're coming from the other way. You don't know that, but now you're going to know.
I've been to the fields at RFK. I've done some stuff there. I've been to the RFK site. But, Clinton, since I've lived here, there barely have been games at RFK. It's been a minute, bro.
True. Well, that's why I was educating you. Back when I was in high school, and me and my boys used to go down to DCU games and see the black and red and get banged up in Lot 8 with all the people that let us in, because that's how you build community. That's the fun part, kiddo.
Yeah. Well, the holdup is going to be the community that lives there now being like, nope, we don't want a stadium in our backyard. But we'll talk about that in 2024. Clinton Yates with us so often. Probably 45 of the 52 weeks would be my guess, something like that, here in 2023.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you this, I had a couple pops before we had this because my vacation had started. So, Anthony, good job on staying on the dump button, and we kept it clean.
Yeah, nice. Love it. All right, well, thank you, sir, for your time. Go enjoy more pops, and I will talk to you. I'm sure I'll talk to you off air this weekend, but we'll have you back on the show probably next week.
Give Rachel my best.
Will do.
Later.
Thanks. Happy New Year. Clinton Yates, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, let's just wrap up the hour. We can try to fit in Take Command some other time. We don't have time for it now because we went a little long with Yates. So we'll wrap up the hour, and then Ben Standig will join us live at 5 o'clock. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. no one has earned the right to play this song.
I just had to play this song one last time before the end of 2023 because there's no telling.
The next time we're going to be able to play it because they win?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we're going to, in the 2023 regular season, having lost 8 straight games. And I don't know if I don't really want to wait all the way until, next September or October to play this song finally again.
I'm sure you'll play it in the offseason. I'm sure you'll play it when they draft someone. You'll play it when they hire a new coach. Although if you listen to Don Van Natta yesterday with us, you're going to have to play it. Maybe if you want to do super bold prediction for 2024, rebrand is on.
And that was what I was thinking. See, look, you jumped the gun, Craig.
Oh, did I? So yes. I wanted to get your prediction for 2024 in. What's going to be the top story of 2024? So, Anthony, is that it?
Yes, you already jumped the gun. I played that song, and I was trying to be careful with my words, but I don't think we're going to be the Commanders for much longer, to be honest. I think a rebrand could possibly be on the table. Granted, I think we'll have a season left, with the name.
Yeah, I think you got at least one left.
Yeah, but I think rebrand is on the table.
Because they would have to hire – here's what's going to happen for them to rebrand. One, they've got to probably blow out Jason, or at least reassign Jason, as in Jason Wright, and others. Or maybe Jason stays in, but they hire a lot of other people in the building. They have to get their people in on the business side. Those people need to do research on how much it costs, what's involved from a league operation standpoint, legal standpoint, because none of those people have just gone through the last rebrand. Which is why, by the way, it might be worth keeping Jason around in some capacity. I know people really hated the last rebrand, myself included, but that was a Dan Snyder operation in a billion ways, I think, including the name. I don't think Jason liked Commanders. I don't think Jason had a choice. Jason's job was to implement. And I think that the Today Show thing was a Dan bit. Like, all the stuff that I hated, I think, was a Dan bit. Jason went along with it, and, that's something that he'll have to look back on and be like, yeah, I was a part of that for the rest of his career. But, whatever on that. Having someone with institutional knowledge of, we need to pursue, these are the copyrights, these are this, that actually might be helpful. So whatever that's worth. But then they have to actually go through the process of, doing testing, focus groups, whatever it is that they need to actually pick names. And then they need to, plan a launch and the whole deal. So I could see them saying this is the last, at fastest, if they get NFL approval, by the way, because you're not supposed to change names more than once every 5 years. But I think the NFL would be fine with it. I could see them saying this is the last year of Commanders. We'll launch sometime next year. I could see that.
Okay. And I had a 1, so that was my 1A. I also had a 1B.
Okay.
1B.
Yeah.
LeBron James leaves the Lakers.
Ooh.
I don't know where he goes,
It's
but
wherever
he
Bronny
leaves
goes.
wherever Bronny goes. That's going to dominate sports for a very long time. We're going to have the whole summer. Then you have the whole lead up to the start of the NBA. Then the season going to come. Bronny and LeBron going to share the court. I think Bron leaving the Lakers in the offseason will dominate next year.
See, I wonder, Bronny had the heart condition, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what's his draft stock like right now? Is he still going to be a first-round pick?
I mean, he's been playing. He hasn't really done anything earth-shattering.
If you're a team that's in the middle of the pack in the first round, do you draft Bronny so that LeBron comes and signs with you? Are you really drafting LeBron James for 1 to 3 years?
So if I'm that team, I'm looking at it as a 2-for-1, essentially.
Yeah.
You get Bronny, and a lot of the young players that get drafted, they're drafting off potential and their ceiling and things like that. So it might take Bronny 2-3 years to get acclimated. But guess what? While you're waiting for Bronny to get better and improve, you're gonna have Bron for a year or 2 at least, and with Bron you're always a contender. So I think it's it's a win-win. Draft
Yeah.
Bronny.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, as crapshooty as the NBA draft is, I can take some freshman from wherever and hope that he's good, or I can take LeBron James kid and also get LeBron. Like, yeah. It's not the worst idea.
Yeah.
What's LeBron's contract situation though?
I want to say this is his last year in the new I think he can opt out. I think he has 2 years left, but I think
He's got an opt-out? Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Because also, like, is he just going to take league minimum? Maybe. He's got plenty of money. So, no, that's a great call. Nationally, that's probably the biggest story of 2024 if LeBron really goes that route. And if Bronny comes out, because Bronny might be like, no, I want to have a really good second season. You know, LeBron gets to play another year with the Lakers. I don't know. That's a fun one. That's good food for thought.
Yeah.
If we had a show tomorrow, I'd have people call in. But we don't because it's Friday. It's a football Friday on the Team 980, and it's driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Ben Standig joins us with the latest on Jacoby Brissett's hamstring injury and the decision-making process this week for the Commanders. That's next on the Hoffman Show.
Washington Capitals.
Honda dealer. We pick every single game of the NFL weekend coming up at the bottom of the hour, but right now it's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
The man who is there in Ashburn today is Ben Standig of The Athletic, our good friend. Ben, welcome to the final show of 2023. Hopefully this is your final radio hit of 2023.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. That is the plan. We're going to try to keep it that way. Full disclosure, I did not actually make it to Ashburn today. I'm a little under the weather. But other than that, ready to talk.
Okay, so I guess that means I can't ask you the first question I was going to ask you in the way I was going to ask you, which is like, what was your shock level when you heard Ron Rivera at the podium go, hey, Jacoby Brissett is questionable with a hamstring injury? But whenever it was that you heard that, not sitting in that room, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is like, it's not the exact same scenario, but it's like somewhat reminiscent of how Week 18 went last year. We all heard, on background or through sources or whatever, that Taylor Heineke was going to start. And then, all of a sudden it's Sam Howell. And, after all this week, I'm sure you guys, talked about it a lot. I know you did because I heard it the other day about, should they start? Should they keep Howell in? Should they bench him? Whatever your angle was, to then, possible do-over. Ignore everything that just happened. We're just maybe going to go back to Sam Howell because Brissett is questionable. That is just a wacky circumstance and somehow fitting for what's going on here.
Yeah, 100%. So for the audience that may not have been locked into every word, like what actually is Brissett's status? Did he practice at all today? Was he totally out today? Like what are the chances that you give it, as you've also probably done some follow-up reporting? I doubt anybody's talking too much, but what as far as you know, what are the chances that Jacoby does give it a go on Sunday?
Best I could tell, I heard it was like a legit, game time decision type deal. I mean, maybe he wakes up, tomorrow and it's all good and it's not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a possible issue. Feeling some tightness in his hamstrings. So, Brissett is a free agent at the end of the year. Have to imagine for any of these guys who are free agents, that's got to be in the back of your mind. Hey, I gotta get in there, at as healthy as I can be. So yeah, if he's got any trepidation, it's a little bit different playing this game than if it was playing, week 5, just, to be frank. So we'll see. I mean, but yeah, it sounds like it's a legitimate possibility. It could go back the other way, but, Brissett hasn't started a game all year. I would think on some level he'd like to get the opportunity. Of course, right? No Charles Leno, no Tyler Larson. Andrew Wiley is questionable, so he doesn't have a full complement on the offensive line already. So, yeah, it could be interesting.
Ben Standig, Commanders beat reporter for The Athletic, is with us on the Hoffman Show. So if it is Sam, like, how do you think Howell reacts? How do you think he handles it? Does it look like the last 4 games, or do you think that the expectations are so low, maybe the pressure is off, and he can actually finally bounce back?
Right. It's possible perhaps that his, what's going on this week, being told he's not going to start, maybe that gives him some extra fire. Obviously, it's been a struggle here down the stretch, not just for the team, but for him. Last game, independent of whether he should play or shouldn't play this week.
Anthony, did we full lose Ben there? Looks like we might have lost Ben for a moment. That is something that I think is interesting, and I'll just see until we can get Ben back on the phone real quick. Like, the whole point of benching Sam was to give him kind of this mental reset. You get your mental reset when you're benched, and you get through a week, you get through a couple of days where you prepare as if you're the backup. You kind of got that pressure off, and also the outside pressure could not be lower at this point. There isn't this mounting like, hey, man, you got to bounce back. Hey, man, you got to pull out of it. Hey, dude, like, it's on you. Hey, Ron Rivera's entire legacy is on the line with you. Like, all that stuff is out the window now. So if he gets to just go play, maybe it's a little bit better. But anyway, Ben, who's back with us, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just saying that, maybe there's just something, there's some extra spark that he gets from having, gone through these last few days. I'm sure he's had time to reflect and think. And sometimes getting a jolt from life can be the spark you need. But again, it's a tough scenario. Whoever is starting, going up against, arguably the best team in football, who has coming off a terrible or bad loss for them, they're going to be, mad and angry and this, that, and the other. So, and, limited pieces on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be a tough shot if this is, in fact, for either way, whether it's Brissett or Howell.
No doubt about it. So that leads us to, when this misery is finally over, no matter what happens the next 2 weeks. And you wrote a story for The Athletic on folks around the NFL trying to kind of gauge what Josh Harris's vision is. We had Don Van Natta on the show yesterday, obviously on the heels of this new federal Snyder lawsuit. But I also asked him, I was like, you're as plugged in with ownership as anyone. Like, what are you hearing? And he's like, honestly, not much. It is much quieter around the Commanders in the circles that I, Don, am in, because he just hasn't been in the NFL before, and people don't really know what he's going to do. You actually embarked on that journey of trying to find out. What'd you find?
Well, I don't have a ton of background in terms of having done a ton of these things before. I mean, I've been around for when the Wizards have fired coaches, and I was here for Jay, but I wasn't as immersed in the beat as I was then. And plus, the Rivera thing just kind of came pretty quickly. It wasn't like there were 8 candidates. It was kind of like, okay, this guy.
Right.
But it does feel pretty close to the vest over there. I mean, there's a few senses of GM it could come first, and everybody's aware of the analytics, but or that he wants, to some degree, to form a group that's got that, front and center of their plans. But yeah, to what degree? Is he going to only want numbers crunchers? Is he going to be open to people who are, pure talent evaluators? Eugene Shen was hired a few weeks ago as this vice president of football strategy. He comes from that analytics background. How does he kind of fit into this? Will they hire people who are that he's got connections to? Does that not matter at all? And then, is it? I haven't had any sense it's like another coach-centric world, but if you're going high enough up the ladder in terms of possible candidates, is that something you're open to? If a Ben Johnson or Dan Quinn were to say, "Hey, we want that," so yeah, I agree. It's been kind of quiet, but there's been some information in terms of there's been various interactions with him. No formal meetings or anything like that. That can't happen for a few more weeks, but just the opportunity to meet him at various league events or whatever. And I think he's coming. He's giving. It's not hard to say he's getting a better impression than the last guy, but it's to say that people are genuinely seem to appreciate how Washington's going about this process, and they're showing some good organization, et cetera. And I think that's something that people are taking notice of.
Yeah, so that's actually where I want to wrap. I was pretty surprised a couple weeks ago when Bill Barnwell put out his list that he had them 7th out of potential 10 jobs open. I happen to think this is either the first, second, or at worst third best job that is going to be open, depending on what you feel about the Chargers roster situation and ownership, and depending on whether you like the idea of Chicago better. Those are the other 2 I would put in this class. But because of the flexibility roster-wise, and because of an owner that we think is going to be pretty good at the ownership thing, I think Washington's going to have to be right up there. What do you think, and what does the league think about this opening?
Yeah, I think obviously the Chargers is a pretty intriguing one because of Justin Herbert, but there are definitely questions, like you said, about the roster makeup. A lot of guys are making a ton of money, and how they're going to do that and still manage the salary cap. The Bears is certainly intriguing. They've got the number 1 pick, all the picks from the last year's trade, and a team that's been playing better certainly the last few weeks. I think the thing with Washington, for me, it's as pretty blank slate as you can get for an NFL job. All the $90 million in cap space, the 9 picks, including right now the number 3 pick. There's no bad contracts on the team per se. Sure, there's the quarterback question, but you have the 3rd pick. I think it's an opportunity to, if you're a visionary, kind of you can. How are you going to color in between the lines? I think it's a pretty interesting job in that regard. But I guess you'd have to see the full layout. One person mentioned to me that he didn't value the job is not a candidate, but somebody talking about the jobs, that because of the facilities, obviously FedEx Field is, needs to go. The Ashburn site needs upgrading. And, if you're a new person coming in, you never know how long these things are going to go, and you're going to have to navigate with that situation for the players to get people in, get your players as ready as possible for game days, and you don't have as good of facilities as other spots for now. So that was one concern. But, I would, like I said, if you want something more ready-made, this isn't going to be the place. But if you want a place where you can kind of, really consider a lot of different options, I think this is a really good spot.
Yeah, no, I agree. And by the way, if that kind of candidate, the facilities might be a positive too, because Harris is going to be like, hey, dude, you want to help me design the new one? Because the upgrades are coming. It's just a matter of time. So if you have a say in the process, that could be actually exciting and a plus for some people, depending on how you think about it, and also depending on the position. I also wonder if they hire are we looking at 3 hires instead of 2? Are you looking at a president, a GM, and a head coach, a la what the Wizards did with Michael Winger and then Will Dawkins, as opposed to just a GM and a coach? So that's something to think about for folks as well. Ben Standig will be reporting on all of it in The Athletic. Make sure you read his piece on Harris and obviously his coverage of the game this weekend. Ben, thanks so much for your time. Feel better, and Happy New Year, my friend. Thanks for all the time in 2023. We look forward to talking to you in 2024.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on all throughout the year. And, Happy New Year's to everyone here. And the season's almost over.
Yes,
we're
almost there. 2 more, buddy. You can do it. I promise. Yeah. I promise. All right, that's Ben Standig, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, Logan and I preview the game for the weekend on Take Command, and then we pick all the games coming up at 5:30. Pick 6 at 6. Dave Johnson at 6:15. We're done at 6:30. We wrap up the year with the final edition of Real Things Real People Said in Real Microphones. That's all still to come on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. And it is time for a little preview of the Niners and Commanders Take Command style. Logan and I did a gigantic, comprehensive look at the San Francisco 49ers and how they've built their juggernaut of the best team in the NFC. And then we got to the game itself. If you want the big, comprehensive Niners thoughts, make sure you check out the Take Command podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want the quick and dirty game preview, here you go. Continuing on Take Command for a full 3-hour preview of this game. Of course, we have the Take Command pregame show. You can come hang out with us live at Tap Sports Bar, MGM National Harbor on Sunday. That starts at 10 a.m., the in-person portion at 11 when the doors open. But, of course, on your radio and on YouTube starting at 10. All right, Logan, we just did big, comprehensive, big picture San Francisco 49ers team-building exercises and how that could apply to Washington and some things to keep in mind for the offseason. But there's a game to play on Sunday. Jacoby Brissett obviously going to get the start. We talked about why we both think that is the right decision on our last podcast. But when you look at this 49ers defense and what EB and Jacoby are going to be trying to do to actually win the football game, how do they match up against San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about, last week with the Jets that there was a coverage kind of drove the rush. And I feel like it's the other way around here. They just got a lot of dudes who can rush the passer, specifically Nick Bosa. Obviously, Chase Young is there. Been a little quiet. Obviously, he's been productive, but I don't think I thought
he's the same guy he was here.
Correct.
Like he can make some splash plays. You have to be aware of him. You have to do a good job. He will also overrush and let Lamar Jackson run for 40 yards. So,
right. And I think that's definitely something that they're dealing with, right? But I think the cool thing about that group is they've got kind of a stable of guys, and I feel like we're saying this every week, that are just good at rushing the passer. They got Javon Hargrave, they've got Randy Gregory, they've got Cleveland Farrell. Like, he's a guy that has been a little bit of a journeyman, but is making plays and rushing the passer well. And they're a little banged up, which is crazy to think about, but they've been able to kind of in season find these acquisitions and keep that rush cooking. So that's something that I think is going to be a big deal this week, is how do you kind of minimize the impact of that group, specifically Nick Bosa. Like, there's talking about, like, we've played some good pass rushers, and I think Micah Parsons, obviously very talented, but he's got to be maybe the second best guy we've seen, and he can just impact the game. And especially if the tackle is not as talented as, like, not a top 5 tackle, like Nick Bosa can absolutely wreck the game, because not only does he play with excellent technique, but he rushes the passer at an incredibly high level, and he just plays.
He typically lines up defensive left, aka
right.
offensive right.
Yes.
So you got Andrew Wiley, who's questionable with an elbow injury, or Trent Scott out there trying to deal with him. I would say staying out of obvious passing situations seems very important.
Yeah, I mean, the question is how you do that. So, but I think that's something that you got to really keep an eye on. And then I think what you see in the back end, especially at the linebacker level, is just a ton of speed. Fred Warner, Greenlaw, those guys are excellent. They run to the football, and they allow them to do so much from a light box perspective, because they're so good at A, playing the run, and then B, reading their keys and getting into coverage windows. So it's like we talked about this earlier this offseason about how linebacker play is being devalued, but in terms of impact on a defense or on a team, like having an elite middle linebacker is like it's like the number 3 thing you can have outside of a elite offensive tackle and elite wide receiver, just in terms of its impact on a roster. And I think they have that guy there in terms of Warner and what he does for them. So keep an eye on that. In the back end, it's a bunch of guys that are good football players, a little underrated. But again, the thing that sticks out to me about that group is they match concepts really well. So in this game, I think Jacoby's ability to anticipate throws is going to be huge. Like I watched the Minnesota game from earlier this year, because that's the team that has thrown for the most yards against them. And Kirk, that's the game Kirk got hurt, but in the first half or the first quarter he was playing, the level of anticipation he was throwing with was off the charts, into small windows, layering throws, and that's what it's going to take if you're going to throw the ball a ton against this defense. So that's something that I think to keep an eye on. And again, I'm glad that Sam's not playing in this game, because that's stuff that he struggles with tremendously. Is it going to be easy for Jacoby? No, it's not going to be.
Hasn't been easy for anybody this year.
Right. It's going to be tough, but I think there is a path to offensive production with Jacoby, but it's going to be very, very challenging. And we talked about how good the Jets defense was. This defense to me is better. It's just better coached. Things are a little bit tighter. They're more consistent. And that's saying a lot because the Jets defense is amazing. So
I was going to ask, how similar are they structurally?
They're pretty
Because
similar.
You have obviously Saleh, the former DC, now 2 DCs ago, but like I'd imagine he took a lot of what he was doing in San Francisco to New York, and thus they look pretty similar, even if their emphasis are a little bit different.
Yeah, very similar. They kind of are like that day one quarters install, but they still run a little bit of cover 3. They still run 2. I think they run less man, I would say. They still run man, but they're like the Jets ran a ton of man. And I think this team, I'd have to look at the numbers, but it feels like when you watch them, they're a little bit less man heavy. So, but again, it doesn't really matter because they're so good at matching in their zone structures and anticipating throws and making plays in the football. So it's going to be a tough matchup, especially if that pass rush is cooking. And that pass rush can cook. So tough matchup offensively for the Commanders. But I think at least with Jacoby, there is a path, a vision where you can get some of those higher leverage throws and maybe make some plays and get some offensive production.
Yeah, staying out of a terrible game flow for once would be nice. Obviously we'll see how they can do that. And then defensively, again, they're playing better. The bar was somewhere 6 feet under the floor in terms of what better meant. But they are playing better.
Yeah.
But this San Francisco offense generates space. It generates big plays. It does everything. I'd say if you keep them under 30, that's a hell of a win, considering the two sides doing battle here.
And again, like the San Francisco 49ers don't traditionally like run away with games because they're perfectly content with running the football and kind of keeping it, deleveraging Brock Purdy. And I think this week, especially because of the offensive line injuries that they've suffered, I think you're going to see a much more conservative approach offensively. So, they present a ton of issues. Like if they were healthy right now, I'd be like, I don't know what we're going to do. Because one of the things that this defense has struggled since Ron has been back is I think they've struggled a little bit stopping the run. And you're going to see a lot of running stuff. You're going to see, we just talked about how they're going to try and get you in. Like Ron, I think, has done a good job of saying we're going to get into these more conservative coverage structures, deleverage the corners, take some off those guys' plates. And that's worked great, but you're playing light boxes. And at San Fran, I don't think you can do that. But the second you get in those heavy run structures, they're going to hit play action shots. They're going to hit drifts.
The second that Ron's like, hey, Mayo, get in there, George Kittle's going to be running up a seam and troubles.
And so that's the only thing that gives me some solace is that they are banged up on the offensive line. Trent's not going to play. They're really effective running the left side of the offensive line when he's in because obviously he's like the best tackle in football. But, he's not going to play. I think they're going to sign a guy. They've signed a couple guys off other practice squads that are going to be here. So how effective is that group? Because while the scheme does take a lot of pressure off the offensive line, like you talked about with Brock Purdy, they are really nuanced and very detailed with the rules. So how can you get those guys all on the same page for this game on a short week? It's going to be very challenging for them. But because of all the stuff they do offensively, it's going to be a tough lift for the defense. And then that's not even talking about the physical matchups. Like how do you match up with Kittle? Who's got Debo? How do you handle all the motions and shifts that they do? Ayuk is playing like everyone talks about Debo, but he's playing better than Debo right now. Christian McCaffrey is a matchup nightmare. He's like a slot receiver that can run the football. So a lot of issues there that Ron's going to have to contend with this week.
Yeah, it's there's a reason they're them. That's the easiest way to put it. That's the team I picked to win the Super Bowl. Still feel pretty good about it. Obviously, Baltimore's got something to say about that, as will some other teams. But they are excellent. They are well built. They are well schemed. They are well everythinged, which is why they are seen as one of the models around the NFL, and why so many of their people have gone on to other places already. And we anticipate that continuing this offseason, perhaps even some of them coming here. That is our show for today. We will talk more on Sunday about this game and about some of the big picture things that we have discussed. And we'll do that on the Take Command pregame show, which you can listen to live on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980 and watch on YouTube. In the meantime, make sure you check me out on the radio, the Hoffman Show, 4 to 7 daily on the Team 980. That also streams live on YouTube at the Team 980 and highlights on my page at Craig Hoffman. Logan, of course, you can catch on Command Center and so much of the Commanders stuff, and follow on Instagram at Logan_Paulson82. For Logan, I'm Craig. We'll see you Sunday at Tap Sports Bar for Take Command. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Final show of 2023 is a Football Friday, driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. It is time, 5:30 on a Friday, for our NFL picks. So we go around the NFL, Anthony. How are we doing records-wise? Is it mathematically possible for you to catch me at this point in the season?
I mean, it's mathematically possible for me to catch you. Will that happen? I don't think so.
How far back?
I'm 11 games behind you.
Yeah, that'd be. I don't know that we're going to pick 11 games differently over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I got some work to do.
So, are you going to go for it, or are you going to try to get the best record you possibly can, even if that means you can't catch me?
I'm just going to try to, it's a great question, Craig. But I think I'm just going to try to, win as many games as I can. I think, I will concede. You have won. You've bested me for 2 years in a row.
Oh, now don't you try this reverse psychology thing. Don't you try to all of a sudden. No. All right, play the music. It's time for the picks. We're both doing well. I'm just doing better. That is where we are right now with the picks, which start. By the way, do we give ourselves the Browns last night? We didn't officially pick it.
I was going to pick the Browns.
Yeah,
there was no way I was going to pick the Jets.
Yeah,
If you want to help me out.
I had a flickering of a thought when there was someone else who got announced as out, and I was like, how many dudes are out for the Browns? I was like, they're still playing the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind. All right, so chalk one up for each of us on that front, and let's get into the rest of the games. Joe Flacco just threw another touchdown. He had 3 last night, of course, in the Browns win where they were up 34-17 at halftime and clinched a playoff spot. By the way, the Browns have 11 wins, something the Commanders have basically never done since they won the Super Bowl. Just one Saturday game this week, but it is a good one. Lions, Cowboys, special presentation of Monday Night Football on Saturday night. The higher-ups at ESPN are very happy with me for saying that. But it's Saturday Night Football in Dallas. Dallas has been incredible at home this year. They are 5.5-point favorites, but the Lions have still been able to score when they've been, for instance, at Minnesota, another team that plays on turf. In fact, they are 6-2 away from Detroit this year. They have played extremely well on the road. In fact, better at home than they have better on the road, 6-2 than they have at home, where they are just 5-2. Yeah, this is going to be a good one, man. I think I'm going to pick the Cowboys. They're 5.5-point favorites. They're awesome at home. They're coming off a tough loss. Like, they're going to want to bounce back. But I think this is going to be, like, I would pick the Lions to cover. I think this is a high-scoring, like, 35-32 kind of game.
Yeah, my gut is telling me that I should go with the Lions. However, the Cowboys just don't lose at home. They do lose in the month of December, though.
That is the other thing. Like, honestly, my gut is telling me Lions as well. But I'm also like, is that actually not my gut, but my emotions? Because I'm going to be rooting for the Lions for multiple reasons. One, I like the Lions. I've been all in on them since Hard Knocks last year. It just took them a half a season to get going. Two, if the Cowboys lose this game, I think that guarantees the Eagles win the division. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know what the tiebreakers are, but I think if the Eagles win this weekend, it definitely guarantees the Eagles win the division, which means that the Commanders game against the Cowboys in Week 18 is a 1 o'clock game and not a 4 o'clock game. And for selfish reasons, I want that. This season doesn't need to last an extra 3 hours. It can be over by 4:20.
So you're rooting for Dallas?
I'm rooting for Detroit.
I mean, yes, my bad.
Big time rooting for Detroit. You know what? Screw it. I'll throw you a bone, and I get to then root full-heartedly for the Detroit Lions. Give me Detroit.
You're going Detroit. I'm going. How about them Cowboys?
All right. I may have just given you one, but that's the end of the gifts this Christmas season. 49ers, Commanders. 1, 2, 3. 49ers. However, I will say this. These are the types of games that dumb stuff happens in the NFL all the time. Like, how many times have we gone 1, 2, 3 this year? And not only does the team that got 1, 2, 3 cover, but they wind up winning outright. There is no freaking reason the Commanders should be within 20 of San Francisco in this game, considering the quality of the two teams, considering the coaching of the two teams, and considering the injury statuses of the two teams. San Francisco does have a lot of guys banged up, but Washington is 3 of their 4 secondary players out. Might be back, like, who knows what's going to happen for them at quarterback. Potentially 3 offensive linemen out. And that's the kind of game that they're at home where they're terrible. They're 1-5 at home. The kind of game that the bad team wins sometimes. So maybe Washington covers the 13.5. And right now, by the way, the total is 49.5. So they do think that I think that's probably with the anticipation Jacoby plays.
Yeah.
And they'll score a little bit. So we'll see. Patriots, Bills, Buffalo, 14-point favorites at home. Belichick very complimentary of Josh Allen this week, who is playing very good ball as of late. But the Bills also playing good team football. They're getting some of their defensive pieces back. And the Patriots, despite their win over the Broncos last week, still are not very good. Give me the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills. I do think the Patriots will keep it kind of close. I think they cover the 14. I think 14 is a lot. But yeah, the Bills are rolling right now. I do still want to see Stephon Diggs get involved. If he doesn't get involved before the playoffs start, I think they're a first-round exit. So I think this week against the Bills, next week as well, you got some time to, get that going a little bit.
Falcons and Bears might be the low-key most interesting game of the weekend. Because these two teams' fates are very intertwined. Very intertwined. One, this game could help determine either, like, the loser of this game, their coach might get fired. Not immediately after the game, but in the offseason. If the Falcons can pull to 8-8 and, like, get a little bit closer, and Arthur Smith can convince Arthur Blank that, like, hey, dude, I just need a quarterback. We thought Ritter was it. He's clearly not. We're going to try again. My system is very quarterback friendly. Just that guy was really bad. Also, like, look what we did with Mariota a couple years ago. I think the quarterback that would actually be one of the best for the Atlanta Falcons is Justin Fields. If I'm Chicago, I'm calling Atlanta when the season's over and go, all right, what do you want? Or here's what we want for Fields. Or if I'm Atlanta, I'm calling Chicago, being like, what do you want? We want Fields. We know you're going to draft Caleb Williams number 1. So that decision-making process for both sides, because I am less intrigued on that if I don't have Arthur Smith as my head coach if I'm Atlanta, is influenced by this game. And as I've said all along, if you are a Commanders fan, you need to root hard for the Bears to win enough games that Matt Eberflus doesn't get fired, because then you are much more likely to get the head coach that you want this offseason. So, and actually, low-key, kind of wacky bit, what if Arthur Smith gets fired and he winds up here?
Wow.
That's a wacky one. Hadn't thought of that one, had you?
I don't think I want that.
What a weird full circle thing that would be. If Fred Smith is forced to sell and then Arthur winds up getting here after his dad is no longer part of the ownership group. Mm-hmm. That would be weird.
I mean, we've already adopted one NFC South team.
I would much rather go a different direction. I don't think Arthur Smith's a bad coach, though. I don't think he's a great coach, though. So, there's that. But I do think what he's built in Atlanta is, like, he's got a clear vision of how he wants to play. And I think he's done a good job of building to that vision. In Atlanta, just the quarterback situation has been terrible. I mean, they're 7-8 with abysmal quarterback play. Yeah. Like, truly, what the people who hate Sam Howell the most think of Sam Howell, that's what Desmond Ridder has been for much of the year. Far more than Sam Howell was. So this is a low-key interesting game. High-key interesting game, to be honest. And I think Atlanta's going to win it.
You're going with Atlanta?
Yeah, Heineke can do enough. Man, because this is another one where, like, I'm rooting for Chicago.
I'm going with the Bears. I think the defense is going to rise up. No pun intended. Word of the Atlanta Falcons. But I think also Justin Fields, I don't know. He's just a playmaker, man. I think he's going to be able to make some plays. The Falcons don't generate a lot, of pressure on the quarterback. So I think he's going to be able to get off a little bit. I'm going with the Bears to win this one.
You know what? I really want to switch, but I already said my pick, so I'm not going to do that to you. I'll take Atlanta.
Help me out, Craig. That's 2.
The Falcons. I don't know. I will say the Falcons are a solid team, and Heineke is like the level of quarterback play that they need to win a game like this. So we'll see. Raiders looked, speaking of teams that have looked very good as of late, especially defensively, and the Colts, who seem to be going tragically in the wrong direction. They do get Michael Pittman back, who is 1 reception shy of 100 on the year, over 1,000 yards receiving. Minshew, by the way, and obviously he's played most of the season, but a couple games shy of a full complement. He's almost at 3,000 yards passing on the season. He's got 29-40, 14 touchdowns, 9 picks, but tough sledding. Indy is favored by 3.5 at home. You taking your boys?
I would love to see you go first.
So I would love to see you go first, and I bit that bullet on the last game that I didn't want to pick.
Oh, man.
These are tough. This is the toughest slate of games to pick that we've had in a while.
The thing is, the Colts need this win right here. Like, all these AFC teams, because they're so cluttered.
And it feels like the Raiders, like, are they a little too close to the sun? Like, is everyone just in on the Raiders, which means they'll drop one?
I mean, the offense, I'm not too concerned about. The offense hasn't really done much. But their defense, they've been capitalizing. Max Crosby, he's been a man possessed.
They're turning turning teams over like crazy, and Minshew is one to turn the football over.
I'm going to go with my Colts.
You know what? So am I. I don't like that pick at all. I feel gross picking the Colts.
It is tough, man.
I feel like people are screaming at their radios saying, "You idiots, what are you doing?" It's the NFL. It's weird.
Yeah.
By the way, it's a bit of a stinky fish.
Are they at home?
They are at home. Why would they be favored besides the fact that they're at home? There's no reason, so take them. Sheehan, your theory better work. Rams, Giants. Rams favored by 5.5 on the road. This is, again, interesting. Tyrod Taylor back as the starter for the Giants.
Yep.
Tommy DeVito has been sent back to the bench. It's amazing what happens when teams get a little bit of tape on you. Lesson we're being reminded of league-wide. I'll take L.A. on the road.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams.
Jonathan Gannon making his return to Philadelphia with the Cardinals. Philly, 12-point favorites at home. I think this one will be a little funky. Obviously, Gannon knows the personnel there in Philadelphia quite well, but there's just too much talent and not enough of it quite yet in Arizona. I'll take Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the fly. Eagles fly as well. I don't know. The Cardinals are the Cardinals. They stink.
Yeah, they're just not very good. They play hard, but they're 1-7 on the road. They're 3-12 overall. They can pull the upset. Number two pick. Hello?
We would love that.
Hello?
Go win the game. We're rooting for you.
But I'm also kind of rooting for the Eagles selfishly because, again, I would like the Eagles to clinch the division and the Cowboys to guarantee that their game against the Commanders in Week 18 will be at 1 o'clock. Saints and Buccaneers, this is kind of a battle for the NFC South. The Falcons can still get involved, obviously, but if the Buccaneers win this game, they are significantly in the driver's seat. And they've got the Panthers to close things out next week. So I don't know what the tiebreakers are, but I think they can clinch the division with a win here. If not, they can obviously set themselves up to just have to beat the lowly Panthers in the finale. Bucks at home, 2.5-point favorites over the Saints, and I will take them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Bucks as well. Kamara, he's questionable to play. And if he's not playing, I don't know how much offensive success they'll have. So I think it'll be interesting. But the Bucks are also rolling. I don't think the Saints are gonna be able to slow them down. They're rolling, man.
Yeah. I wonder if I just did a quick search for Dennis Allen hot seat. It doesn't seem like he's gonna be on the hot seat, but I also wonder who's the Saints offensive coordinator, because they offensively have been hot garbage. Their defense has been pretty good, which is obviously Dennis Allen's thing. Pete Carmichael Jr., whoever that is. But, that's a spot where I wonder, could EB be in the mix, you know? If they want to bring back Carr, or even if they want to go with Jameis, do you take a veteran? If I've got a veteran quarterback who can handle some mental load, and can handle some tough coaching, I'm all right with Eric Bieniemy being my OC. I've got a young quarterback. This year proved I don't want him anywhere near that young quarterback. So if that's the case, could EB wind up in New Orleans and try to revive what they're doing offensively? I think that could be an interesting fit down there. So just a thought if they make a move, because it seems like something's got to change on that staff in the offseason. They've obviously got good players, and they've got some good fight to them. They're 7-8, but there's something missing there. Trevor Lawrence going to miss his first start of the year. He has got that AC joint issue in his shoulder. Jags hosting the Panthers. I don't know, man. Backup quarterback. Can Carolina get to 3?
Ooh,
Bryce has been playing a little bit better.
he has, but that Jaguars defensive line, man. Ooh, this could be interesting. Am I really about to go with the Panthers?
I don't know. Are you?
I mean, I thought I was
4-point favorites.
I thought I was about to go with the Pistons yesterday. Nah.
The Panthers have won more games recently than the Pistons.
They have.
And they play once a week, and
Yeah.
they're the Panthers.
I think I'm going to go with – I got to go with the Jags. It is a weird NFL, though.
Dude, if it was at home, I would take Carolina in this. I'm going to take Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Jacksonville. C.J. Beathard, that defense steps up. Their defense has played pretty well this year despite the offensive struggles. Ugly game. Carolina's playing better, but they're still Carolina. Their roster is just really bad. I'll take Jacksonville. You too?
Yeah, I'm going with Jags.
Dolphins, Ravens, probably the game of the weekend. Obviously, 2 juggernauts in the AFC. Dolphins coming off their big win last week against the Cowboys. Did a really nice professional job closing out that game. Great watch of Hard Knocks this week and some of the details going into the end of that game. Ravens obviously coming off the big win against San Francisco. Can they back it up against Miami?
I'm going with the Ravens. I think they're the best team in football. I think this is going to be a good test for the Dolphins, but they will be without Waddle. So a lot of the attention is going to go to Tyreek. But they still have chosen Anderson off the bench. Like he's still a speedster.
Not Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. But again, I'm going with the Ravens. I just think they're going to be too much for the Dolphins to overcome.
I do too. And obviously the offensive systems that they run in Miami and in San Francisco are very similar. It's a short week for the Ravens, but that helps. A lot of the similar concepts, similar things they get to go against for Mike McDonald 2 weeks in a row. That said, Mike McDaniel now gets to watch the Ravens tape of what they did to Kyle in San Francisco and make adjustments. So that can kind of cut both ways. I'm going to take the Ravens, and I'm going to take the Ravens because I think it's probably the wise thing to do. I still, I don't know. I just don't like them because they don't win pretty. I don't know. Stylistically, I just love the Shanahan tree and how they play football so much, and that's half the league at this point.
Yeah. I think AFC North in general, man. Just how they win.
They just do stuff different up there, and it works. Yeah. It's so good. I mean, I love what obviously Monken and them have done as well. And McDonald defensively, they just found ways to generate pressure, create turnovers. They take a guy like Kyle. I mean, they do something that I think this organization needs to figure out how to do, which is take players who are really good at something, even if they have another weakness, and make them do the thing they're good at, like Kyle Hamilton. Okay, so he's not going to play single high safety in the post because he doesn't run a 4-4. He's a 4-6 guy. Okay, he's awesome at everything else. He's probably going to be the best box player in the NFL in the next 5 years in terms of a defensive back that comes down. So you pass on him because he can't play single high in the post. So just don't make him play single high in the post. And that's what good organizations do. Debo with San Francisco, it's okay, so he's not a traditional Z wide receiver or X wide receiver. Make him Debo Samuel. He's incredible at that thing.
Give him the ball, man.
Yeah, give him the ball and get the bleep out of the way. Or move the other guys the bleep out of the way. You're with Trent Williams. So, think like that. How do we make great players great? As opposed to how do we box a great player into a box that he's not actually good in? Anyway, the point is, I'm going to take the Ravens, but I kind of want to take the Dolphins, and I'm rooting for Miami. Titans, Texans, C.J. Stroud is back. Any more analysis to add here, Anthony?
Nope.
All right, Texans?
I'm going with the Texans, baby.
Steelers, Seahawks. Steelers, of course, came back with that win last week. Seahawks, 3.5-point favorites at home. I think that they will take it.
I agree with you, Craig. I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks as well. I'm just not a firm believer in the Steelers. But if the Steelers go on to win, they will notch.
Clinch. Yeah, another
16 straight seasons for Tomlin.
I think so.
Now?
It's all of them that he's coached. Never
Every
been
last
below
one.
500. Chargers and Broncos. 1, 2, 3. Barf. I mean, just a terrible football game. Obviously, Russell Wilson benched.
Yeah.
Who's starting for them? Stidham? Stidham versus Easton Stick?
I think I'm going to go with Stick. The way he played last week, he had me a little scared for the Bills. Remember, they only won by 2 points last week.
I know.
I don't
I'm
really
picking
want to
the
go.
Chargers out of spite. I hate the Broncos. I hate Sean Payton right now. Did you hear Ryan Clark on Get Up this morning?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's worth your time. He took Sean Payton, called him a thug. Took
my
him
goodness.
to the woodshed. Bengals and Chiefs. Chiefs 6.5-point favorites at home. Bengals came crashing back down to earth last week. Is this the week Kansas City finally gets it right? They have had troubles in the past with Lou Anarumo's defense. I think this is it.
They better get it right.
I believe in Patty Mahomes.
I'm going with the Chiefs as well. I will never bet against Patrick Mahomes ever.
Kadarius Toney is out for the second straight week. Last but not least, Sunday Night Football. Vikings, Packers. Vikings benching Nick Mullins. They are back to Jaron Hall, the rookie out of BYU, at quarterback, and they are favored by a point at home.
Yeah, the Packers will be without Jair Alexander. I don't know who's going to check Justin Jefferson, but they've had their fair share of
By the
battles.
way, we didn't talk about that story
at all, which is crazy.
That guy sucks.
He's like, I don't know what was going up in here.
He has done things over the years, said things that are so disrespectful, so disconnected from reality. I'm just like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, come back to planet Earth. And I sound like an old guy yelling at a kid, and just like, then he does something like that, and you're like, you know what? No, I'm right on this one. This guy, not with it.
Yeah, he was lunching on that one, but I think I'm
I hope
going
he
to go with
learns
the
from it
Packers.
because he's super talented. I wish the best for him. We're gonna pick this one at the same time. I don't know who you're picking. I actually don't know who I'm picking yet, but we're gonna find out when 3 comes out of my mouth. 1, 2, 3. Packers. Okay. Sorry, Kevin. All right, when we get back on the Hoffman Show, we will do our last bit of picking for 2023, our pick 6, before Dave Johnson joins us at 6:15 here on the Team 980. Dave Johnson joins us on a Wizards game day. Wizards Nets tonight coming up in about 10 minutes. Right now, though, on a Football Friday presented by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. It is time for our Pick 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
You know, Anthony, we probably only get to use that liner, 2 more times before the coaching staff is blown out, and we're going to have to find a new bite.
Oh, man.
Because I feel like we'll do our Pick 6 at different points in the offseason and stuff, too. Obviously, that segment was something we started during training camp, but, we're not going to keep EB if they don't.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, whose week is it to go first?
It is my week.
All right, number 1.
Number 1.
Number 1, I'm going to go with Corn Lucas, Craig.
Good pick.
First of all, Charles Leno, it looks like he's going to be out. Didn't practice again today.
He's officially been ruled out, so yes, that is.
Oh, there it is. But I put Corn Lucas on there because he's going to be in front of our old friend, our old pal, Chase Young. And usually when players come back and see their former team, they like to tee off and go crazy. I think Corn Lucas has to, do everything in his power not to allow that to happen. So all eyes will be on him because everybody's going to be watching Chase, and everybody will be super critical of his performance. So I think it's a lot of pressure on Corn as well.
I agree. That was definitely on my list, or Corn was definitely on my list. Let's get to the guy who is actually number 1 on my list.
Number 2.
Cameron Curl.
Ooh.
Cam is the only regular starter that will be playing in the secondary, unless you count Quan Martin, who has moved into that starting role the last couple of weeks as the third safety. But you got Quan and Cam, as well as Terrell Burgess in that safety rotation. And then with Percy Butler out, and obviously Derek Forrest remaining out. And then both your starting corners are not playing. That would be Benjamin St. Juste and Kendall Fuller. Communication is essential against this 49ers defense. I actually had another name written down. It's like 1A, 1B. Anthony, I don't know if you were looking at the rundown and saw the other name that I typed before I deleted. Okay, well, you probably are going to hear that name next then. I don't know. We'll see. Point is, Cam Curl is critically important, and that has been a flaw for them this year. They haven't had that Bobby McCain level even communicator. Nevertheless, like what San Francisco has in Tafungo when he's playing, or Kyle Hamilton and some of the guys in Baltimore or Miami, the way they communicate on the back end. Like all these really good defenses have a dude back there, and for all the good things that Cam Curl does, that has not been his strong suit. Now, one of the things that he has been good at over the years is covering tight ends. Obviously, George Kittle, that is a huge matchup, and he will be the guy who probably spends the most time on him. So Cam Curl, massively important. Also, the run fits, obviously, against Christian McCaffrey. I don't have a mute button. That's not a fine.
It's all good. It's all good.
Number 3.
Speaking of fine, I forgot to add your 15 points, but I'll do it in the break.
Okay.
Number 3.
Number 3, I'm going to go with Scary Terry. 2 weeks ago, he had a huge performance against the Rams when Jacoby came in, in the relief. If Jacoby's going to be out there, I think Terry could be poised for another big day. Again, I think it's just going to be important for these guys to win quick. There's going to be a lot of pressure that's being generated from the front. So I think it's going to be important for Terry to win quick, Jahan, Curtis, things of that nature. But I think Terry could be in for a good day. They have solid corners. That is what I'll say. But they don't have a Sauce Gardner. They don't have, a Reed or anything of that nature. So I think possibly a good day for Terry.
Yeah, they have really good corners and just a really good defense overall. He's going to have to win quickly. I will say something I want to explore next week. I actually want to see if either Bucky Brooks or Daniel Jeremiah will come on the show because their podcast, Move the Sticks, did like a fun thought exercise, which is what separates the leading receivers in the league? Like, is there, because you have guys like Tyreek, you have Mike Evans, like you have all different kinds of body types, all different kinds of skill sets, guys who line up different places. Is there a trait or traits that ties them together? And what they came up with is play strength and like that, and also like energy, toughness. And Terry's got that in spades. I think that's actually why Terry is an elite receiver, and you're reminded of that when he, actually gets the ball. But he plays really strong, and when he gets the ball and he runs with it, like he breaks tackles and all that kind of stuff. And, I was texting with Logan, and Logan's like, do we think Jahan has this? And I was like, that's an interesting question. And I think that's something that going into year 3, like getting stronger and learning how to play stronger is something that can help unlock Jahan because he's got so much other stuff that's tremendous. But it's something I want to unpack a little bit more, think a little bit more about. Also from the defensive back side of it, I think that's an interesting thought exercise. Okay, number 4.
Number 4.
All right, the guy that I had written down earlier, the other part of this communication puzzle is Cody Barton. Kyle Shanahan uses motion and alignments as effectively as anyone. And so Cody, who used to play him twice a year when he was in Seattle, obviously has a good feel for what they want to do. Can you get everybody in the right spot? Can you make their life harder? Can you make sure that people are on the same page so that they have to earn it? San Francisco's better than you. They can line up and 13-play drive score. Don't let them. Or make them, I should say. Don't let them get big explosive plays. They're the best explosive play team in football. Get everyone on the same page. Get everyone in the right spot. Get your alignment and your assignment right. And then if they beat you, they beat you. But don't lose by the pen. Don't lose by alignment. Don't lose before the ball is snapped. That's Cody Barton's job before anybody else. And then, obviously, as a run-fit player, he is average at best. Like, he's been pretty good. And I think people say the interception last week and some of the plays in the red zone. Like, Cody Barton has figured out how to play middle linebacker in this defense from a pass coverage standpoint. He's typically where he needs to be on the run stuff. He's just a little slow in getting there. And so it's a 4-yard gain instead of a 2-yard gain kind of thing. When Christian McCaffrey's a running back, those can become 20-yard gains real fast. So he's got to play fast as a run stopper this week as well. So Cody Barton, number 4.
Number 5.
Number 5, I'm going to go with, can I call them a group, our defensive ends, because they rotate so often?
Yeah, sure.
One of the strong suits of, San Fran's offense is their ability to get to the edge with Christian McCaffrey. And I think it's going to be very important to, try to contain him and not let them hit that edge. We don't have to worry about Trent Williams this week, but
has he officially been ruled out now?
I think that's what you guys said on the pod.
We did say that on the pod, but he has been practicing on a limited basis. So let me keep talking. I'll look that up.
Yeah, well, if Trent's not in there, I think it'll be easier than, if he was in there. But they love to run behind the left side of the line. And I think whoever's going to be that right defensive end, they're going to have their work cut out for them. But also, John Allen is going to be important for him to, fill that gap, fill that lane, and just hustle to the ball. They get to the edge really fast. So I think that's going to be important for our defensive ends.
Trent is going to play. Full practice today, no game status. So, yikes. Eric Armstead is out, as is Jair Brown, Jawan Jennings, Jalen Moore, Ross Dwelly. Jordan Mason is questionable. And Demetrius Flanagan Fowles is questionable. He's got an illness. But Greenlaw, Elijah Mitchell, Brock Purdy, Debo, all these guys were on the injury report all week. They don't have game statuses, so they are good to go for San Francisco. My last guy, or since you took the ends, my last guys I'm going to pair together as well.
Number 6.
I'm going to take the defensive tackles. So I talked about Barton and Curl pre-snap. Post-snap, you know how you don't get a big explosive play to Christian McCaffrey? Don't let him get started. The interior of this 49ers offensive line wins by alignment a lot. They do a good job of setting things up to get you to shift your one technique to be deadbeat for the double team and things like that. They do a really good job of kind of scheming up the run game stuff. But individual one-on-one, they are not as talented as John Allen and Daron Payne. So those guys have been playing a little bit better week by week. John, I know, has been battling some injury stuff still, but go make plays. And I would actually like to see, to combine our last two, them kick Daron Payne outside and John Allen outside in pass rush situations. Let them get some one-on-ones, probably not against Trent. That's a death wish. But go line Daron up on the right tackle on a 3rd and long. Let him rush the passer from there. He did it once this year. I think he got a sack. If not, it was a QB hit. So, and it was 2 weeks ago. So let's see some creativity up front. And I think those are your best players. If you want a chance of holding this Niners offense in check, they have to be dominant. up front. That is our pick 6. We'll revisit it next on Sunday on the Take Command pregame show live at Tap Sports Bar, MGM National Harbor with Logan Paulson. And then we'll see how we did on Monday back here on the Hoffman Show. Dave Johnson joins us from Capital One Arena next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up, just 2 segments left in 2023. It's crazy. And what better way to spend the first of these final 2 than with our old pal, Dave Johnson, because it is, after all, a Wizards game day.
Time to get the radio party started.
Blocked by Bilal Coulibaly. Oh, boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pool, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right there. And near the steal and the slam. You better go off. Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for 3. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
Hey, you better go off.
Dave with us ahead of Nets and Wizards tonight. Dave, how are we doing on this Friday?
You know, we're doing well. It's Friday. It just occurred to me that I've got something to listen to on the way to the Wizards game on New Year's Eve. Remember, we have a 3 o'clock tip-off here. Allows people to have New Year's plan. But you've got your show with Logan Paulson, right?
That is true.
That was on my bucket list of things to do because I've heard it several times this year. It always sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun. It's at MGM Grand, right?
Yeah, it's at MGM National Harbor. We're out there at Tap Sports Bar, yeah.
I'm going to I don't think because it's about 11 o'clock, right?
Yeah, doors open at 11.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm going to be in game prep mode here for the Wizards Hawks. But, all right, next
What about on the 8th? Is that do we know the schedule that far out in our heads?
Wait a minute. Well, the 8th is a Monday, isn't it?
Sorry, this. No, I guess you're right. It's the 7th.
No, yeah, that should be good.
There you go. So if you want to come hang out.
So wait a minute. This is what happens when I only do one sport. I used to be knew everything because I was anchoring and et cetera, et cetera. So the season still goes on next week.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dave, there are 2 more Commanders games this year. 2
more?
Yeah, there's this one this weekend, and then they play the Cowboys on the 7th. Yeah.
All right. Now, once upon a time,
the
NFL football season was over before Christmas, and you were in playoffs. The greatest game ever played, or at least that's what people called it for decades, was the Baltimore Colts, New York Giants overtime game.
Right.
And the anniversary of that was December 28th. That was the championship game. So you're telling me January 8th, well, we could have an ice storm or something. We're still playing. It's crazy. I mean, this world is just crazy. It's crazy.
It is. The NFL season.
I'll see you on the 8th. I'll see you guys on the 8th.
Of the 7th. We established.
7th, right.
The 8th is the day that we're actually all looking forward to because that's when the season is over.
There we go. Okay.
That is going to be Black Monday.
All right.
That is, I mean, we're not celebrating anyone's downfall, but we're just ready.
Gotcha.
It's inevitable. We know it's coming. It's time.
Right.
The time is the 8th. Meanwhile, tonight, you got the Nets to worry about. First of all, have you run into my friend Ian Eagle at all yet?
I have.
Okay.
And I should have said that I'm Craig Hoffman's friend, and he might have said hi back, but I did run into him.
If Ian was rude to you, then I will have a word with him. That we can't handle that.
No, Ian's one of the best, and good to see him here tonight, and all the good folks from the Nets. And the Wizards are going to try to get a win tonight against the Nets team that I was just looking at this stat. And this is something we talked about a lot this year for the Wizards, and they have not done it. We understand what their limitations are, but they seem to have the players, you would think, can we have a night where we have 23 pointers? And that you make your 3-pointers in this league, that can go a long way to victory. And I was looking at the stat, 2 previous meetings against the Nets, the Wizards were combined 16 of 74 beyond the arc. That makes it tough to win when you're only making 8 3-pointers and the other team is making more. Again, I'm going to look for a big night from Jordan Poole tonight. Let's get a Corey Kispert surge off the bench. I mean, those are the things I want to see happen tonight against this Nets team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was a tough one the other night against the Raptors, but it was also one of those where you look at the schedule and you just go, uh-oh. Raptors hadn't played since the previous Friday, second night of a back-to-back for the Wizards. But I think the thing that's encouraging for me in watching that one, like Jordan Poole came out and was aggressive early. He gets up 7 threes. Like I think the Wizards probably want him overall taking more than 12 shots. But it does feel like, and we've talked about this a number of times this year, Dave, but it does feel like Jordan's shot diet is getting much closer to what I think this team wants it to be. And, obviously the other night's a rough one. He only scores 14. It's not like anything earth-shattering. From a process standpoint, do you feel like the last, let's say, 2 weeks, this is much more along the lines of what the organization is looking for out of him?
Yeah, no, he's been more efficient, and that's another way of saying, he's getting more into the flow of what they're doing. And you look, to listeners, it's a reality. People will say, well, everybody does it, et cetera, et cetera. But as you talked about the back-to-back situation, it was an uh-oh moment. When I looked at the schedule and the Raptors had played Saturday and been off, and the Wizards had that competitive game, as you know, against Orlando on Tuesday, I was thinking, uh-oh. And you know what? If you look at who scored who was, Kyle Kuzma had an off night. It was not the same zip the Wizards had the night before. So you just move on and listen. You hope it works the other way for the Wizards. But the point is, this team, Jordan Poole, is getting more efficient. This is a team that is still number one in pace. And right now that makes them the fastest in team history. They're ranked 7th in assists. In fact, they're one of just 4 teams that have an active 6-season streak of 25 or more assists. And yes, I'm reading from a script, but what I'm pointing out is the Wizards are doing a lot of positive things. What they're not doing, and this is what's killing them, and again, it gets back to rebounding. They're last in the league in rebounds, but also they're giving up second chance points. And again, you look at the game against Indiana, they won while they out-rebounded in that game. And again, it begs the question, well, how do you fix it? Well, Shaquille O'Neal is not walking through that door, that type of thing. It does have to be a team and a gang rebounding effort, or is just like what I said, let's get smoking hot beyond the arc. And when I'm not saying crazy, but 23 pointers is not too much to ask for. In other words, if you're going to have a deficiency where you're giving up too many second chance points, to get victories, you need a positive that negates the other team's success, let's say in second chance points categories. So while this team is still what it is, 5-25. What was the football coach that said, was it Dennis Green, or who said you are what your record says you are?
Yeah, that was a Dennis Green. I thought you were going to go Steve Spurrier. 5-11,
right.
not too good.
No, right. I know. Well, I always love. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss Steve Spurrier press conferences. Those are fun. But
yes.
But the point being is it'll be interesting. January, I believe we're going to see, and maybe we're going to see it tonight because again, the Wizards did have a day in between games. But this team is doing a lot of things well. It's now you'd like to see a few more wins with that as well, because you made a great point. Jordan Poole is easing in and getting into a flow and is more efficient. This is what this season is all about in terms of starting to see, quite frankly, who fits and how they fit and who stays. I mean, this is a process. When I say who stays, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, this is not the Wizards roster going forward for the next 4 years.
Sure.
This is a discovery process.
For sure. And we're getting close to that time where the moves start happening. December 15th was a big day in terms of extension eligible players players who signed this offseason eligible to be traded. January 15th, there's another slew that gets unlocked, if you will. Then obviously you got the trade deadline in February when all the deals tend to go down. And we know the Wizards will be active. They have a bunch of players that can help other teams win that don't fit their timeline. So it's going to be an interesting 6 weeks here. Of course, we'll be visiting with Dave to talk all about it. If you're not headed down to Capital One Arena, or if you're heading down and are not going to get there in time for tip, make sure you're listening to the pregame starting at 6:45 and then tip off at 7 against the Nets. Dave, thanks for all your time in 2023. We look forward to your visits in 2024. Have a wonderful New Year and a great call tonight, and send Glenn our best.
Hey, listen, great to be always on the Hoffman Show, because I know a lot of focus on the Commanders. I hear they're a pretty big deal in town, but you cover everything. So I remember last year driving around, I heard you talking about Champions League soccer, and I thought, man, he nailed that as well. So I look forward to seeing you. I'll talk to you before, but January 7th, I've got that in my diary.
Indeed. I love it. Thanks, Dave. Talk to you.
Take care.
That is Dave Johnson, the legendary broadcaster here in D.C., the play-by-play voice of the Wizards, who you hear, luckily enough for us, right here on the Team 980. When we get back, Anthony, it's the final segment of the year. Oh, yeah. Maybe a New Year's resolution, or maybe not. But maybe, and the best of the year for real things real people said into real microphones.
messed up. I forgot to play Rebecca Black. Good gracious.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube, where you would have just heard Anthony with an admission that did not get made on the radio. So, Anthony, I'm going to make you share it with the radio audience. What did you deprive everybody of for one final Friday?
It's Friday, and I forgot to bring in the last segment with Rebecca Black. Oh, my gosh.
You were working hard in the break getting the best of real things for the year ready. So, do you want to find Rebecca Black real quick and, like, start the segment over?
Well, I was definitely going to just end the show with some Rebecca Black. I was going to get it in.
Okay. Some shows end the year with Auld Lang Syne. We have Rebecca Black. Take that, other shows. All right, Anthony, do you have a New Year's resolution, period, / do you have a New Year's resolution for the show? Like, what in 2024 do you want to do? Either in general that you've already thought about that you're willing to share, or is there something related to the show that you want to do more or better?
My New Year's resolution is probably going to be
to not forget Rebecca
Black. From a professional standpoint, probably just put myself out there a little bit more. Because I've gotten my foot in the door in like several places. Now it's just time for me to, take that next step. So
don't leave me behind. Don't leave me, bro.
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank God. My New Year's resolution is to leave this dumb radio program where I play Rebecca Black most of the time. No, that's great. I know you've been working on some stuff, and if I can support you in any way, it's more than my pleasure to do so. I'm excited for you because you got some cool stuff that you've been working on, and I think you're a young budding star, my man, and it's time to let you shine a little bit. I think my resolution is to try to read more, which is just a gigantic nerdy thing, but I always pride myself on trying to have a lot of information, and I think that, like a lot of us, I've gotten lazy in getting that information off of social media, and there's a lot of great stuff, and I do a lot of research in terms of diving into whether it's PFF numbers or, just basic data. When I say data, like going to ESPN and looking up stats like yards and touchdowns and interceptions and comparing them on Pro Football Reference to past seasons and getting context. But, we have so many great writers covering sports locally with Sam Fortier, John Keim, Nikki Javala, Standig, like all the people on that beat. Josh Robbins is doing incredible work for The Athletic on the Wizards, as is Ava Wallace during a terrible season, but they're still producing great stuff, and I need to read their stuff more. I definitely read a decent amount, but I know I can read more, and there's so much good information, so many good perspectives, and it makes the show better when I do, and I just should be more consistent with it. So that's less social media, more actual articles. That's my professional goal in 2024.
Man, reading is so hard. Like,
I've been better about reading books.
It's not hard. It's just consistency.
Yeah, it's like I can read, or I'm going to sit down and play Madden. It's like, no, read the article. Don't rely on the fact that you could find half the article on social media and the conversation about the article. Go read the article. That's something I need to do better. Personally, I don't know. When I want to do stuff, I do it. I don't really have like New Year's resolutions. Typically, that's kind of how I roll. But I've been doing a good job recently of reading like actual books, and that has definitely been rewarding. I'm reading one on sleep right now, and let me tell you, sleep is pretty fascinating. Wild stuff happens while we're not awake. Anyway, that's my nerdy self. Let's close out the show. Leave plenty of time for our top 3 nominees for the Real Things Hall of Fame from 2023. I say we just go ahead and enshrine them. Ladies and gentlemen, the best of Real Things in 2023.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, we start off with the ultimate Real Things Hall of Famer. On Mount Rushmore, the other 3 folks are up for debate, but Kevin Harlan stands above them all because the segment was basically founded on Kevin Harlan being Kevin Harlan during the broadcast. Sometime in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, Kevin Harlan had a streaker during a Monday Night Football game, and he called the play-by-play on Westwood One on the radio of the Shrieker. I wanted an excuse to play that and have a really great time with it on the radio. I was doing weekends at the time and doing my Sunday morning show, and I created a segment called Real Things Real People Said in Real Microphones, basically to play the funny Kevin Harlan clip, and then we just kept it. And we started doing it every single week, and we find funny audio, serious audio, like important audio, very non-important audio. But really, it comes down to the fact that we wanted to play Kevin Harlan doing play-by-play of a Shrieker. Now, Kevin Harlan, we went back and counted, had 4 contributions to Real Things in 2023. This was our favorite.
Team is in at once. Each team is punted. Tonight's first quarter is brought to you by Cousin Subs. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes. Man, I'm starving. All paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, we believe in better. And I've eaten with you after games. You like to eat too.
Yeah, but I'm not hungry yet, Kevin. I'm not hungry yet.
You're always hungry. What do you mean? I know a woman back in Green Bay that says, oh, he is always hungry.
I will say, ad reads, they're dangerous, man. You want to know why? Because marketing works. Advertising works. They can get you hungry. By the way, I should remind you that it's a Football Friday on the Team 980, driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience performance and ruggedness with Honda at your local Honda dealer. So, Kevin Harlan did his part in 2023.
He did indeed.
He did indeed. Thanks for your contribution, Anthony. If there was a second person in line to have their bust immortalized on Mount Rushmore, it would be someone who is a friend of the show. It'd be someone who is a personal friend. It would be someone who is in Washington, D.C. tonight, because he's the play-by-play voice of the Brooklyn Nets. He is also going to be on the call Sunday in Baltimore for the Dolphins and Ravens. Lucky him. He was on the call Thursday Night Football last night in Cleveland. He's a very busy man. He is very talented. His name is Ian Eagle. And while there was a moment, probably my favorite Ian clip of the year is when there was an errant pass that came to him and it got a drink spilled in his lap. It was a whole kerfuffle. There is one call that was famous/infamous from Ian in 2023, and it was the very start of the world's most popular romance.
Low snap. Mahomes moving pocket. Mahomes floats it up. Caught! Touchdown, Travis Kelce! Kelce finds a blank space for the score.
Now, we did real journalism on this, aka I texted Ian going, did you pre-plan that? Are you a Swiftie? Did Noah, your son, who many of you have also watched Noah Eagle call games now for NBC, did Noah give you that? And he's like, nope, I'm a Swiftie. So there you go. And I think it's important to note, Ian was before everyone else. Like, the rumors were just starting to really heat up. It was before the NFL was getting all their licks in on Taylor Swift. It was before all of that. Ian was the cutting edge of this. He nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah, he got to it, man. That was a heck of a call. Finds a blank space. Wow.
Just very smooth.
Very smooth.
If you get it, you get it. If you don't, it doesn't ruin the call. Yeah. That's how you know you did it. Last but not least, out of the total nonsense category, in September of this year, a training mission for an F-16 fighter jet went wrong. The U.S. military lost the plane. This man saw it. Let the news take it away.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
The first thought came to me, I said, this must be a meteorite coming out of space or something. And I said, well, if it's an airplane, it needed to be reported. But the thing was flying just too low.
The F-35B airplane wreckage created an extensive debris field.
My bad. It was an F-35, not an F-16. But Anthony, that scream. Do you have the scream queued up? Yeah. That is not only enshrined forever in the Real Things Hall of Fame. It is on my soundboard in the studio. It is something that has become a part of the show. It is one of those moments in our show's history that, like, if you know, you were there. You could say that you're a true Hoffman Show fan because you know the plane scream for when the U.S. military lost the $1 billion F-35 jet, and it went screaming past this dude's house. Thanks for listening all of 2023. Thanks for listening today. We'll be back on Tuesday. See you at Tap Sports Bar this Sunday. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980.
Sitting in the backseat, gotta make my mind up.